It's official time 5:02. It's July 7th. To call this work session to order. We have a food truck discussion. Mr. Resner, are you handling this, or were we supposed to wait for Miss Ashley?
So I think there were two things that we kind of talked about for today. One of them was, if there were any interested restaurateurs, I guess, that wanted to come address you, you could do that. And then the other piece of it was kind of looking through that proposed ordinance. And I know there were a lot of things there that Ashley needed some additional information on to guide her as she tries to draft something there. So I think that's probably where you'll end up spending most of your time. Ashley's running a few minutes late, so.
I know, Commissioner Kitchens, you had some questions on the email. Is this something that Macon Bibb have done, or?
Yeah, I thought I'd responded to her. And I can't remember what, I didn't have any questions, I just had some comments on, but I don't see her questions in here. Just trying to think if we got them on our. I think one of the things that I had, that I mentioned to her was the length of time a permit can be. In Macon Bibb, we did it as a special permit instead of like you got a permit and you can go anytime you want, as long as you want and all that. So we did it based on cherry blossom. You could get up to a 10-day because the event was 10 days long. Other than that, it was a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Most of them are one-day events, like if they were having a festival or something on a Saturday, you come get a permit for that day, and you go from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or whatever it was that day. If it was a weekend festival, you could start on Friday morning and go till Sunday night type thing. And that was to try to, I guess, to kind of separate and you got to understand that in Bibb, a lot of it was the downtown. They'd have a festival or have something in a park in downtown on 3rd Street, and they'd want to have food trucks. But when you got restaurants lined up and down 3rd Street, they're like, hey, food truck parking right in front of my restaurant. This ain't fair. This ain't right. So we had a bunch of pushback from that. I don't see that here because everywhere that a county property would be, I don't know of many places other than the place at the courthouse that's even anywhere near downtown with restaurants. Everything else private property, so I'm assuming, they could sit on private property without coming to us. I mean, if there's a permit process, I think, I'm assuming private property is still through the health department if they wanted a permit, or are we talking about coming through us for a permit?
That's my thoughts. I mean, private property is going to be exempt through this, right? This is just for county properties?
I'd have to ask Ashley, I'm not real sure. I was thinking last time she said even on private property, you would want some sort of regulation in place, but I don't.
Sure.
Maybe when she gets here.
That's fine.
And that's
working from memory. I don't.
And I think that's where we differentiated in Macon between a special event and a health department issue, because even on county property, the health department had to come in and make sure that you were up to all your codes. They would do an inspection on it for the event. That was part of the process when you signed your application. Part of it was that you checked off, give your number from the health department that they had inspected your food truck, and you could take it by there and they would inspect it before you go to the venue. They didn't have to come on site and inspect it while you're there because you weren't hooking up to anything. So everything that was in there was portable, could be inspected before you went to the venue. But and most of the time, if a food truck does it 3 times a month, twice a month, you call the health department. They're like, we've checked them 6 times. They're good. They know they have this, and this. So, but I don't know about. We didn't. Of course, we weren't permit special events on private property, so if they had one at Bass Pro Shops, they had a big walkathon thing out there, and for us in Bibb, if it touched county property or a right of way or a sidewalk for the event, they had to let us know, because then you had traffic control and safety issues and all that. So even though, and I'm thinking of the big Jay's Hope walk out at Bass Pro, they would have food trucks and carnival stuff and all that. They had to get a permit through us because they were parking on the road and walking, through a right of way. Even though it was on private property, they would use part of the right of way for parking and walking. So, but we didn't inspect the carnival rides or the balloons or any of that kind of stuff. It was just we need to know for how are you planning on controlling traffic and how are you planning on keeping the participants safe. That's all we needed to know. And I don't know about
And
the
I
private
guess
property.
it's not gonna, I'm just thinking, well, really, do we have anything that would take place? Let's say we had something at the rec department, people came in and like, fundraisers. I mean, they're exempt because they're not using a portable. I mean, is it gonna be a different, it's gonna actually be a portable truck for the purpose of? It's not, what we're gonna do here is not gonna affect, let's say if Matt has something out there, like, where they're selling peanuts. Was it, Masonic, whoever they sell peanuts for fundraiser, it's not gonna affect them.
We had this issue before when people were talking about ice cream trucks and snow cone trucks and that kind of stuff at the rec centers, at 18 at the complex. If the concession stand is selling ice cream and you bring an ice cream truck and park in the parking lot, I don't think it's right if somebody's paying a fee to be in the concession stand to do that. But I mean, I don't know that, personally, I wouldn't have a problem if they're selling something that the concession stand don't offer, like.
That's the way our contract is structured with him.
Right.
We have an event at Parks and Recreation. The concession stand has first right of refusal to offer concessions. If, say for some reason he didn't want to, then we can bring in who we wanted to.
Mhm.
If he says, yes, I do, then we can still bring in anybody that offers something that he doesn't consistently offer.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's not allowed to say, well, for this event, I'm deciding to do barbecue where I've never done barbecue before.
Right.
That's fine, you can, but we're still gonna bring in his barbecue truck.
And I would even be okay with, if we were having, we just use the bands in the sand, for example. We're having an event out there that we're sponsoring, the county's sponsoring, and there's gonna be 800 people there. I'm okay with giving a special permit to a food truck to sit there, because number one, the concession stand can't feed that many people. And I don't think, it's not a normal function that he was under contract with originally. So, but again, to me, that goes under a special event. And that was what I was used to doing in Bibb was special events, not, which is why it was kind of confusing for me about a permit. If we're talking about a food truck permit, an annual permit, that because I got a food truck, because I got an annual permit, I can just let y'all know where I'm gonna set up this weekend and next weekend, and I think that's gonna cause us a little issues because it right now, if we only have 5 in the county that are doing it, it probably wouldn't be an issue. But if it's a lucrative business and it's worth doing, and we get 25 in the county that wanna do it, and they go, wait a minute, Johnny's been in that spot for a month now, and I really wanna go there because he's getting a lot of business. Is it first come, first served, or do you, the whole year you can go? Or that was the questions I had or thought about was, if we limit it to a certain amount of time, then it's not you do got to define, I think, the brick and mortar and the food truck. If it's a food truck that sits, and I keep thinking about Deacon Huff down there. Everybody was used to him being there forever, and I'm sure he was grandfathered in. His fruit stand was there forever, vegetable stand was there forever, and I really miss him, but because we used to go by there and get all kinds of stuff. But I'm thinking about that spot. If somebody says he's not there very often, and they have a food truck there every Friday and Saturday and Sunday throughout the year, is that a disadvantage to somebody that built a restaurant or had bought that property and built a restaurant on that corner? Because they're not, other than sales tax, they're not paying property tax to rent it for a permit.
Wondered about Sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
You know, to me, the one spot kind of in town that I think makes sense is the courthouse on days where you have court, where you have a lot of people assembled in one spot. I think that's where these things, tend to do better is, a lot of times in larger, downtown areas where people empty out of office buildings or something and go pick from one of several. But our challenge over there is,
Space.
the space. I mean, there's,
Right.
we need all that for parking on those days. And so then you go, pulling several parking spaces out of commission to feed the folks that are there. I don't know which is better, having a closed place to park or having somewhere close to eat.
If they get the event center over there finished, then we can park it right there beside it, and just walk right down there to it, and hang out in a little park, have a picnic table, eat your lunch, and spend some money.
Yeah.
The other one is if they go past Carroll's Park and go off into the parking lot right there, it's close enough that, people could, I think it's a good opportunity to have a place like Carroll's Park with the picnic tables and stuff like that people would walk down there and get food if they're in court that day. But knowing how the courts run in Bibb County, you never know. You don't know. All right, we're going to lunch at 11:30. Judge don't get off the bench and say, you got an hour and 45 minutes. Be back. He says, we're taking a break
Yeah.
for the rest of the day, 15 minutes. You just kind of hang around in the hallways. But that would be good to walk outside and get something in a food truck. But you're right. It'd be hard to put one right there.
I think the opportunity for us is creating an open environment for people to do their business, right? Because at the end of the day, you hope that the food truck maybe transitions into a brick and mortar, because they start there because it's typically cheaper, unless that's just their business strategy. So with regard to the courthouse, directly across the street at the Boys and Girls Club, what happens Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock in that parking lot? Nobody's there, right? Haley and her assistant maybe?
Yeah.
So that becomes another alternate place within the park. I'm a fan of first come, first serve. Short of being a paper boy, I didn't have any competition. I knew I was the only one with a newspaper in my neighborhood. But if I went down to the car wash to wash some white walls or some spokes off some old Cadillacs, I had to be one of the first guys there early Saturday morning, about 6 o'clock, to get my stall. All right, so no different than the shoe shine guy who went to the barbershop. If he wasn't dedicated, he had to get there first to get the chair. So I think that becomes a simple strategy where, we could designate spaces, and here are the spaces you can get to, and they're all going, they're all going. It is what it is. Get there and get there first. And then around the county, where there are special events, it is what it is. It's sort of open, and we, again, designate those areas if we're at the ballpark or we're over where the fair is held. If it's a county space, it's a county space. And I think from a pure permitting and revenue stream, I guess, the county can designate here the county spaces so people can drive to them, because the reality is, we have county workers that are in different areas, and if I know you're going to be working on Stallings Road for a year, I may post up on the corner, I'm just saying, if we ever get in that situation again, and I just sit there with my truck, at a construction site. Think about, when they were building the school, how long somebody could have sat out there with a food truck. And up north, that was normal. You go see the guy flip up in the morning, he's got his donuts and his coffee. So I think we have some opportunity to create a revenue stream, because I think that's what this is, but also give people an opportunity to start to do business, because if they do have a good product and we can put them into a physical brick and mortar space, then that's where we really start to, help them and help us at the same time. But I don't want to create an ordinance that's so prohibitive that a high school kid coming out with a great idea or a great meal can't start his business or her business. I think it should be that simple, where I pay my fee, I find my spot, and the health department comes out and checks me out. If it's a special event, private property, is what it is, and we let them go to work. And then if it blows up and it's 20 people, then we revisit it. I don't think we are so big right now that we have to worry about 40 food trucks. Are there, 10 maybe, 5 maybe?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that there's a food truck group that if it's a lucrative business, then they know exactly how to play the game, and they'll be here in a minute. And that was one of the pitfalls that we had in Macon, where there were 3 or 4 that had local businesses that went with a catering business and a food truck. So they would do special events, weddings, parties, birthday parties, and stuff like that. And it was just say kudzu seafood. You know, I got a catering truck that's a small truck. You're having a party of 50, 75 people. I'm there. Go ahead and call in your order, and I'll bring the truck out there and open the sides and serve everybody. They come get their meal and go back, and I'll close the doors up and drive off. It's a done deal. So those work great. Where we had a problem was when we didn't have restrictions on timelines, and I'll use Amerson River Park, was we had to quit putting them out there, because started out with an ice cream truck. A guy brought an ice cream truck out and set it at the pavilion. Well, you got 600-700 kids coming through there a day in the hot sun with nothing out there but a primitive park, playing in the sun. Guess how many ice creams he sold? A lot of them. So people were like, well, hey, I want to get, well, he's already got a permit there, and he filled it out. You couldn't start. At one point, we had them, July 1 was starting, and you couldn't fill them out until June 30th. We would have people standing in the office saying, I want them this weekend, this weekend, this weekend, this weekend, all the way through November. And then I want April through June 30th for this year. So they would book it up the whole year and then come back at June 30th the next year and start getting July, August, So it was an annual thing that, and I know we probably may never have, I hope we do have that problem here, but I don't know that we will. I do think we'll probably have some, I think we're limited on prime spots, and I think we're going to have, if more than 2 or 3 want to do it, we might have some issues with where they want to be, as far as the traffic pattern on a normal day. I don't think, in Bibb, we didn't have, the fee to have the permit was $50 a day. And I was like, why even bother? But it wasn't it was the people you bring into the community, the sales tax off of what they're selling out of the truck, and if they're coming there to eat a meal, they're not just driving from Macon to get a meal and driving back. They're usually coming here for something. Stop and get gas, go to a ball game, whatever. But they're sprinkling a little more dust than just that food truck. But and the biggest thing for us, I think, is catching people that want to stop on their way home to Milledgeville, or stopping in the mornings. If you got a food truck that serves biscuits, chicken biscuits, and that's all I serve, you stop by, give me 10 of them for the office. Psh, psh. Pull in, grab them, and go. That's more convenient than McDonald's or Dairy Queen or whatever. And so that I see as a good thing. I think we got to have some limits. And one thing that we did that at the Bibb was, and I didn't realize until after we wrote the first policy, was we had a caveat in there that said and this is something we're going to have to decide, is who's going to run the program, who's going to actually authorize the permits. But we had to put in a caveat that you could be denied a permit for different reasons. And it could be something as simple as, just like you said, somebody says, I want to fill out an application, I want to park it in the first 6 parking spaces at the courthouse on this day because I know there's a huge trial coming, and I've already heard that, well, there's only 24 parking places and you're going to take 8 of them. No, we can't do that. Those would be reasons why you would turn them down. Or we had events in Macon that would have, and I'm thinking about Cherry Blossom, where a different group would come in to Balloon Festival. They would be out at Westland. Well, we didn't permit those trucks. They had to permit through the Cherry Blossom organization because that was a Cherry Blossom event. So Cherry Blossom filled out an event form for us and paid, just say, $1,500 to have all their events under their umbrella. That way the food trucks, the fireworks, the carnival rides, the balloon guys, all those had to turn their insurance in to Cherry Blossom Festival. They didn't pay us $50 or $150 or whatever. They paid everything to Cherry Blossom. Cherry Blossom leased the space for their event. Well, then we would always have people that didn't get in with Cherry Blossom. They'd only limit it to 10 food trucks. Well, the 2 or 3 that didn't get in time would come to us and say, well, we want to set up just outside their perimeter, like out here on Wesleyan Drive, a block down from them. Well, now you're talking about having cars stopping on Wesleyan Drive to pull over and go, and it causes, we already having a nightmare with traffic getting into an event with 5,000 people. We would have to say no because it was a safety issue of traffic and pedestrians on a main highway, and you would have to say no because the sheriff would always say, I don't think that's a good idea, or the fire department would say no. So we would have to turn them down for that. So there were times when we would get into, well, your permit says all I got to do is come down here and get this, this, and this, and give you $50, I can get a permit. Well, the bottom line says we can also deny it if we have to or need to. That was always a tough one for me, because in making that, I was that guy that had to make that decision, and it wasn't run back to the commission and ask them, hey, what do y'all think? You make the decision and you have to justify it, but that ain't a fun. So whoever does that for the county, we got to remember there's got to be some gray area, but there's got to be some common sense behind it too.
Sound like you're doing a good job, Bill. Why don't we just let him do a job?
I'll give you a price on it. You do know I left that job, right?
Any other thoughts? How about you, Mr. Tommy, anything?
Well, it just sounds so many variables. I agree that it probably shouldn't be too hard for, people to get into the business. But there's just so many variables, I don't know, right now, I don't know how in the world we could start it. Sure there's a way.
Mm-hmm. I love when Commissioner Martin said if somebody out of high school starting a business. I heard a conversation with 2 brothers just a couple weeks ago. The younger brother, who's still in high school, was going to get the older brother that's in college to make some extra money. He said, I'm going to set you up an ice cream business, and you're going to start selling ice cream in Gray. And he said, what are you going to be doing? He said, I'm going to be counting the money. So the little brother had it figured out. His big brother, we need to get something. Yeah, we'll start an ice cream business. You're going to run it, and I'll sit back here and count the money as it comes in. Thought that was a pretty good partnership there.
I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, I think of the special events. I mean, the parade, every time we have a parade, you can't get into a restaurant. It's impossible. So I'd love to see a row of food trucks on parade night. I mean, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the counties out there, we can't try and get in Pickle Barrel on parade night. It's impossible. Dairy Queen line is wrapped around the building. McDonald's is crazy. But I've got food trucks? Oh, yeah. Not to mention, while they're waiting for us to set up, we've got food trucks. And I'm just thinking revenue stream and revenue stream and revenue stream.
And I see that. I kept thinking the same thing. When we talk about the fairgrounds, the parades that we have, the turkey festival that we're going to have downtown, every event that we have downtown. And then I kept looking at, well, where are these? I mean, every one of them are on private property. So basically, they'd have to get a permit from or approval from Ingalls to set up in the parking lot, which, I guess that'd be fine. But I don't see many of them that are on county property. Maybe 10 a year that I could think of that would be on, county property asking for a permit. But I can see, a permit process where, and to me, I think it's more of, we need to know that we need to know there's checks and balances that somebody's setting up, even on private property. I don't think it's a good idea to just come in and see food trucks set up all over the place, and we don't know that if they're serving people, if they've been checked, if there's been, any checks and balances on it at all. So I think there's a process. I don't think it's a money-making venture for us at all. It wasn't in Bibb. I showed them time and time again that the staff hours it took for $50 a day. You gotta meet with them and let them tell you what they want. They gotta fill out the permit, they gotta bring it in, you gotta read through the permit, check everything off, call the fire, the health department, fire department, sheriff's department, make sure everybody's good with it. Check it off, sign it off, take their check, send their check to the bank, do all the paperwork, all that kind of stuff. And then the day they set up, we'd always have somebody go out and make sure so we'd spend 3 hours of staff time per event for $50. And I'm like, it just didn't work out. We didn't make money off, but it was a good thing. I mean, I thought it was a good deal. And I think it's a good idea here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does this make any difference that most of the things y'all are talking about are in the city limit? I don't know if the county can permit something in the city.
I asked Tim Petrowski way back when this first got brought up, and his thought was that on county property in the city, we could kind of set our own rules, basically. Now, if you're talking about private property in the city limits, certainly that would be falling in the city council, but I think Tim's thing was on government property within the city limits, we could.
Yeah,
Oh.
a lot of the things y'all been talking about are on.
Right.
And I don't know the answer to this, but I don't know the answer to the process. If it's a permitting process like planning and zoning, I mean, it's countywide. So I just don't know. I don't feel like we have or should have the authority to say yes or no on a city piece of property or within the city limits. But the process of permitting somebody in the county may be under us because the city doesn't permit for planning and zoning, or the city doesn't permit business licenses, or I think all that comes under planning and zoning. So the
City does their own business.
do they? Well, I don't know because I'm in the county. And I pay mine to the county. So, well, then, I don't know. That's a good legal question
Like I said, that would just in the city, that'd just be the courthouse and Knox Center, correct? That'd be the only two facilities,
This is in the city limits.
and this would be city.
Um,
So it'd be the government center, the courthouse, and the Knox Center would be the only three locations that would be permittable on county property.
And I guess you got
Senior
the
center
within the
library.
city.
Yeah, senior center,
Senior
library,
center.
and health department.
Right.
Like the property around the W Knox Center, is that county or
Port
Board
of Ed on the front strip.
It's a,
We still don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's all interesting questions if you could permit something that's not actually county. Well, the county owns the building.
Yeah.
But if it becomes an ordinance for operation inside the county, then you blanket it. So in order to have a food truck in the county, you must get a permit. And then if the city requires something additional, then you can do that. Because the permit is just to operate, not just to operate on county property, correct?
depends on how you structure it, I guess.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
Because it was really weird when we were starting it in Bibb. The way we understood it in Bibb was if you get a food truck permit from the state to serve food, you're good to go. It's just like a driver's license. You're good to go in the state of Georgia, unless you have an ordinance in that specific county telling you what you can and can't do.
So there's a state license you can get?
When you get through the health department, when
Oh,
you
I
get
got you.
your food,
Food service.
Yeah, okay.
But if you got a food truck, you don't have to have a Jones County license, Bibb County license, Monroe County license, unless they all require that you get a permit
Okay.
for their, if they have an ordinance that says, if you want to set up anywhere in our county,
Yeah.
we got to know it. And I think we want to promote it, but we also want to know it too. And I definitely don't want to, and when we're sitting here talking about there's not enough money to even worry about it being a revenue stream, that revenue stream is from the food sales that goes to city and counties. So, I don't know how we can even think about talking about whether we should or shouldn't do it in the city and county and splitting money or anything dollar amounts, because I can tell you now that $50 permit fee, if that's what it is, or even if it's a $100 permit fee, if we're talking about, well, was it in the city or county, because I want my percent or I want my, that would be useless. It would defeat the purpose. If there's a permit process, I think we need to figure that process out. But, you know, and I don't know what the city thinks, but I wouldn't think that, I mean, maybe they do want to have a permit office in the city. You go there to get one. If it's in the county, you go there to get one. We just say, if you're in the county, you got to have one. Now, whether it's us or them, depending on where you are, you know. Fortunately, we created Parks and Beautification with consolidation, so I was creating one in a consolidated government, so I didn't have that worry. It was all one.
Then the other question for brick and mortar that want to have a food truck, they already paid their food permit, right? So are they exempt from the permitting process because they've already paid for it?
Not from the health department.
The health department, you have to have, man, there's a name for it. There's three things you can have. You can serve on site, and you can serve out of a catering truck on site, and you can serve alcohol on site as long as it's in your same confines of your building. So if you have there's something to do with catering, and you just like if it was a Zaxby's had a catering service, you know, and they had a delivery truck, they could work under their Zaxby's license, but through the health department, they would have to have some kind of specialized part to that says they can carry their food off-site.
It's a separate thing.
Yeah.
On the report that I get from the health department, if there's a food truck, it's a completely separate.
Yeah, because they inspect them separately. They inspect, because you don't prepare the food at Zaxby's and load it on a truck and take it somewhere. You pick the food up, take it on the truck and cook it somewhere. You know, it's not the whole prepackaged versus serving food type thing, but yeah. What do you think, Miss Ashley?
Sorry, Mike.
No problem.
I have a meeting with the health department regarding this topic Thursday afternoon. And I spoke with Tim Petrowski regarding the impact with planning and zoning. And on government property, there's really no impact. The issue would come into play when it's private property. And although I know we would require permission of the landowner, the property owner, it's still, with our ordinances right now, our planning and zoning, it's still against regulations. So there's some tweaks to those regulations to our planning and zoning that we got in place right now that we need to do to allow any food trucks on private property. And he was going to look into some of that and send me some sort of suggestions that he thought of things that we needed to look at. And so I'm working with Health Department, Planning and Zoning on some of the things that we need to put into place. And I was hoping that you all had some good suggestions for some of the provisions, like size, locations.
Would the planning and zoning, for our ordinances, that would be city and county? Because we were just talking about, what about permits in the city versus permits outside the city limits type thing. But our ordinances would need to be tweaked for them to be able to do it anywhere in the county.
Right.
With us going down this road, what does it do for churches, rec organizations, or just a family wanting to do a private fundraiser for someone with cancer? For example, a guy was selling watermelons out in front of the pharmacy the other day right there across from Ace Hardware. Does this hinder him? Is he considered a food vendor because he is selling a product, a food product, a produce product? Or if someone goes and gets 500 Krispy Kreme boxes, that's food, and now they're selling it at the red light, somewhere.
Just my personal opinion is, I got an issue with that because we don't know what they're selling and what has it, I mean, are they selling spiked up watermelons? Are they selling bad watermelons? Or, you know, do we have any liability from them sitting on a right of way somewhere selling? I mean, I would assume that somebody just pops up with a vegetable stand, all right, and gone tomorrow. We at least need to know it. I mean, you know, I'm not thinking we need to make money off of it, but we need to know it.
Well, if they're on county property, I mean, they need to be permitted in some respect, but if they're setting up like in front of Ingles and Ingles is allowing them to sell Girl Scout
Right.
cookies, then no, I mean, they're not preparing food. I think you've got a different sort of category of vendor. It's the preparation of food on the food truck that makes this really the issue, and why there needs to be provisions in place, because it's through that preparation that you have things that have happened in other cities where they're dumping, you know, piles of grease out, you know, on the asphalt and pulling their food truck away and things of that nature, and or leaving the trash from where they've prepared food and people have eaten, and you know, and not properly disposing of it, and things of that nature that we don't want. We want to have something in place,
Well, that's right,
some
that's why I was asking,
recourse.
'cause the one restaurant that Commissioner Pitts brought up, being Sawmill Quarters Restaurant, if they prepped everything at their legitimate restaurant, packaged it, and then sold it as prepackaged hot food, would that be a different permit? I mean, it's still food vendor, but it's not on-site prep food, it's hot packaged food.
I don't know, and I think that's a health department question, I would think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's got to be there's got to be some provisions in place, some definitions.
Now,
Because there's a difference between girls selling Girl Scout cookies in front of Ingles and a food vendor selling food out of a truck that's been prepared on site or at the restaurant and been put on the truck and taken to another location. There's a difference there. So the definition certainly needs to be included, and that would be a health department definition of what classifies a food truck. But it absolutely will be in whatever new ordinances we put into place. One of the major things, you know, we have sort of little details. One of the major things, a couple of the major things that I think we need to make a decision on if everyone wants to go in this direction is who's going to be responsible, who's sort of the head person that when they fill out their application and they turn in their money, where is that going to?
Yeah, me and Jason had that conversation today, because logistically, if we permit them to go set up in Knox Center parking lot on Saturday from 12 to 3, who's gonna go out there at 3:30 and make sure they clean up behind them? I mean, same thing you said, the challenge y'all have in Macon, somebody's gotta go out there and then, of course, if the trash ain't picked up, it's gotta be picked up, and then, of course, then the reports has to be done Monday. And then,
well, if it's a food truck, I mean, you can put a deposit down, and if they don't clean up, they take the deposit. But if they're inside of a venue, then we're still gonna have to like go unlock the door and lock up afterwards and that kind of stuff. But where you were talking about it's private parties and somebody having a fundraiser on their own property or on private property, we didn't get too much into that. I think our loose definition was if you have an event that's open to the public and the public is invited and you're advertised for it, then it's not a private party. So if you want to do a fundraiser, you're going to do a fundraiser for a cancer victim or for a cancer society, and you advertise that, that's a private function for an event, for a cause. But if you say, we're going to have a 5K run to benefit American Cancer Society, and we're going to limit to 100 runners, and it's $25 a piece, and we're going to serve, you know, coffee and donuts before and burgers afterwards type thing, that needs to be a permit, because even though it's for the same purpose, you're inviting people and you got risk involved, and you got more people, you know, but I don't think the private part of it, we get too much into. We can.
Because right now, they can't really even sort of go to the health department and get permitted if our ordinances don't allow the truck to start with. I mean, like there's been a food truck setting up in Gray that, nobody's made a fuss about, but really should not have been setting up. And so that's fine if we want food trucks. We just need to have the provisions in place that allow for them and that address these, issues so we don't have problems from it, of trash and grease and bad food and things of that nature. And if we're going to allow the food trucks on the county property, like at the courthouse, I'm in court all the time. We can't. It's not just park anywhere you want, because you're going to have a food truck right in the middle of where you need. I know COVID's changed things, but right where you would have a massive amount of cars of people going in for arraignments or calendar calls or things like that. So there does need to be a defining area of this is where we allow food trucks, not just where's anywhere in this parking lot go set up, because you're going to have problems. When you have big court days and things of that nature, and they want to be parked right in the middle, the best, most visible spot is going to create issues. So we need to define, this is where we'll allow food trucks, here's the process. Certainly we want this in our community, but this is the application. If you're going to set up on county property, this would be where you set up at, and here's the cost associated with it, and here's the application, this is who you turn it into. So those are the questions we need to determine, and the location, who's going to oversee it, and the cost, what are we going to charge them, and how long is that application going to be good for? Would they apply for a month at a time to set up Monday through Friday, at this area of the courthouse parking lot for X amount of dollars? Well, that's fine. We can put that in our application.
Does the city have a permit process already in place? And the reason I ask, because an old mayor used to have a ice cream trailer that he hauled around town and set up in different locations to sell ices.
And that was actually against our zoning regulations. But nobody fussed about it, and,
For some reason, I thought he was somehow got a permit because it was up there at the end of Green Settlement.
He had a health department.
Okay.
yeah, health department, yeah. So we just need to work together so that it's allowed, and there's no issues with it being fine with this department causing problems with this department. And if it's going to be on county property, I just need to know where we want it and how long they're applying, for, like I said, Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, whatever, from this hour to this hour, and it's going to be this amount of dollars for you to rent this space and have those designated areas.
And who's going to oversee the process?
Right,
Who's going to take the applications, approve them, take
Right.
the money?
right.
I'm assuming that the money's going to be taken at the front counter. I mean,
Then they'll get a receipt and go to wherever it is they need to go to for the permit, right?
or what we did was have the permit online, and you bring it in with your check and your application, and you turn it all in. And we had to have 48 hours notice, so that's 24 hours to look it over. And you call them and say, if for some reason they're not approved, you call them and say, look, here's why it's not approved. Give them the opportunity to say, okay, well, can we move it over here? And, well, yeah, that'd be fine. You just can't park at the front door. But if you move it over here, we're good with that. Okay, fine. And you write on the application, applicant is moving to the northwest corner of the parking lot, spaces 6 through 12, and then you sign off on it. If they say, no, if I can't be right here, then just give me my check back. Denied, here's your check, here's your application, have a good day.
This would be considered a code. I mean, it wouldn't, I'm just thinking code enforcement, it wouldn't fall under.
I mean, y'all can make whatever you want to fall up under.
I'm just saying, if it would be considered a code, that it's not gonna be a code, it's just gonna be a.
You know, and I don't see it being a big deal. I mean,
Just who's gonna do it.
Right, just who's gonna do it.
I mean, pre-designated spots.
I don't think
you
anybody's
know.
gonna be flooded with food truck applications,
Yeah.
but if we're gonna have a process in place, we need to have somebody that knows the process and
Mhm.
can take the application.
I mean, finding a pre-designated place, that's just, let's go out there and
And mark it off.
mark off a common sense area for them
Yeah.
to set up that won't affect parking. Look at who we've got
And if there's any other, I know Commissioner Pitts mentioned the courthouse parking lot, are there any other, county properties that you all think would be potentially good spots that you all wish to allow food trucks in the future? Then we would wanna, designate areas there as well.
well, that's what we were talking about. We only have a few county properties that are not in the city limits. So, I don't, we need to figure out how that process is going, are we permitting them to sit on a county property in the city limits? And the city might say, we don't want permitting food trucks, or we do want them, but we got a different process and they need to come through here because it's in the city limits. We need to
And I'll talk to.
talk with them and see if it's something that they're on board with, if they have a different process or they want a different process, or if, they want to, inside the city limits, you need to come to this department and get an application. I mean, our ordinance is going to be countywide, but I think permitting the two governments may be different, or may be the same, or
Right.
one might say, y'all handle that. I don't want the headaches.
Right.
Can we make that a shared document where we could make corrections and strike-throughs on it? Is that possible?
The questions that I had,
Yeah, the ordinance and the question.
I emailed that out, was it not in Word?
Well, I meant as a shared document, so we can see all the live responses. We can probably ask Will if he can do that.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it, but I can find somebody who does.
Yeah,
Do y'all use
You go
SharePoint?
through
Google.
Google Drive.
Mm-hmm. Will,
I'll make it happen.
sounds good.
Email it to Will and tell him, jump right on that.
Yeah, I will.
So, another question, when you talk about special events, is that considered something that the county is doing? Or say you rented a couple ball fields because you wanted to have something, and now you're wanting to bring in food trucks? To me, that's not considered a special event.
No, that needs to be permitted through recreation. If it's a recreation field, just like if somebody wanted to have a tournament at the ball league, they don't come to us and say about a tournament, they come through recreation department. So if it's on recreation property and it's not a county-run function, I would think that they would need to come through you, and, because you're the only one that knows what the schedule is anyway.
Well, they do as far as that, but when it comes to outside food vendors, we generally don't.
Right.
There's been times in the past when people would try to have big functions that had a community park and didn't want to bring in food trucks to go inside the park, and we just couldn't let them.
Right. I think that's where a decision's got to come in of determining why they can't, and that is because if it's damage to property, not wanting to drive on the grass or drive on this, or if you say, yes, the permit allows for it, the ordinance now allows for it, and we're going to permit it, then you determine, here's the designated spot at Haddock Park. Here's 6 spaces right here, this is where if you want a food truck, this is where you park it, and we'll permit it. And, that's where I think it would be a good opportunity, because you don't have the ability to sell food at that park.
I mean, it could be, it's going to be difficult to sort of anticipate ahead of time. Somebody may want to put a food truck here or here or here to sort of a lot for those at the start of it. But if, depending on who oversaw it, was able, when you get an application and they say at such and such park, to go to the park and say, well, this would be where you're allowed to be at if if the permit were to be issued.
I guess the question for the health department would be, if we said it had to be 48-hour notice, so they came in and bought the permit 48 hours prior to setting up, how do we know, how do we find out if the health department actually inspected it or not?
Mhm.
How do we ever find that out back?
Yeah, I'm gonna meet with the health department. I think there's
And is it
somebody
even-
training for Floyd's position now. And so I'm gonna sit down and meet with them on Thursday and sort of talk through.
What we did was just put a box to check that says that the applicant says, yes, I went to the health department. I mean, if they're gonna lie on the application, I mean,
Yeah.
we got issues already, so,
Yeah.
you know.
Here's your sign, right? So there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, you see, Bibb County, is wanting to, their attorney is sort of like, you know, we need to slow down and making some ordinance changes because there's so many factors that go into food trucks with all of these different departments, and I wanna make sure they're all meshed together. And I told him, you know, we're having this same discussion and trying to make sure all the departments are sort of working together to make sure, you know, everybody complies with the way the process needs to run.
Obviously, we'll need another work session to go over what we've got. We ready for that? We can do it.
I'm gonna,
Or just share it to us and we can.
yeah, and then we can have another work session. I'd like to wait until we sort of kick the can a little bit further and gotten some information from the health department and maybe have some specifics to review for you all to discuss and anybody else that wants to review them. But who is going to be sort of in charge of this is going to be a big issue that we need to decide.
Anything else for this work session? No one? Well, if we can take a quick break before we open up for our meeting.